But there is one thing that kind of like unites us all, right? PowerPoint. You thought I was going to say revenue. My understanding of GTM was more that it's like this, like the birthday party in kindergarten where if you want to invite one person, you have to invite the whole class, right? And everybody in a way kind of touches this. It's this kind of thing that's just there. And that was my understanding of it. So whether it's CS, sales, marketing, like the C-suite, all those other communications that have to happen, everybody's got something else on their plate, right? Like we're highly busy people. But there is one thing that kind of like unites us all, right? PowerPoint. You thought I was going to say revenue. First, we make the PowerPoint or G slides, then we get the revenue. And I know you PLG people, like your products sell themselves, so you probably don't make any PowerPoints. But for, even inside those product-driven orgs, we know that very critical business strategy and communication is distilled down, boiled, iterated on in slideware of some format. What's scary about that is everybody has access. It's a very approachable tool, right? Everybody can get in and create a deck. And that's why we see just decks on decks on decks at our companies. And they're just floating around. And you have to stop and wonder, like, what do some of them say? And what do some of them look like? Many people talk about alignment. Kyle Lacey called it the number one challenge in scaling an organization. And we've seen those numbers. It's a $1 trillion problem when we are rowing in different directions. If you're not aligned, are you leaving 10% of revenue on the table? If you're a $1 billion company, think $100 million out the window. So this is a scary challenge to think about, like for me to tell you, hey, go out there, go back to your company and like stop everything, call in all those decks, and get these things aligned. You don't have time for that, right? So I am actually here today to talk about 2 or 3 slides that we commonly see in nearly every good presentation. And if you can nail these and really hone in on them, they do have the chance to sort of operate as these narrative anchors that could then scale across your org, because scaling the story consistently is the challenging part. But when there's all those departments who have to speak to the same GTM, we do think that like by virtues of 80-20, you can really dig in and try to hang up these narrative fence posts that the rest of your org can actually speak to in a similar manner. So to start, we're going to start at the end and work backwards. We're going to start with the old showing of the goods, the solution slide. We all love a great solution slide. It's that chance where we can actually like show off what we do, whether it's tech, SaaS, you name it, no matter the industry, everybody's got a solution slide. Everybody, carbon removal, med tech, even adaptive attractive bra, industry has these solution slides. So we get really hyped up to finally reveal the stuff that we're working on. But that's where we can really trip up, because when we get too carried away with jumping right into our product, solution, features, claims, it starts to feel a little off-putting when you're on the other side of that, right? And if you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, it's sell me this pen, and what does everybody do? They jump right into the claims, here's what it does, without really thinking about like the demand, like the need, what need is it actually solving? And so this is human nature. Like if you go back to old school advertising, they're touting claims about the brilliant new futuramics and the velvety superlative interiors, right? And thank goodness super smart marketers today aren't still doing this, right? Like for me, I don't know about you, I don't know what actual need the Cybertruck is solving for me. And Christopher Lochhead from one of the bigger narrative, Play Bigger authors, talks about we've got all these solutions, but like a lot of them don't actually have problems. And when we've been on the other side of this, in like the receiving end of a sales pitch that's everything, like solution after solution, we see it coming a mile away these days. Maybe back in the day it used to work, but today it's easy to dodge because it doesn't actually like speak to something that we feel is our problem, right? We have unique problems, unique needs. And if someone's shoving these claims down, trying to cram it in our throat, it's not going to work. So that's where we bring in the tried and true problem solution combination punch, right? Anchor slides 2.0. If you could just focus on 2 slides, it's probably these ones, right? Problem solution, they just belong together. We all love a good problem slide because it it makes our solution look that much better. It's kind of the yin to our yang, the before to our after, the peas to our carrots. And if you kind of look at the science of story, a lot of really smart minds have studied story shape, right? Like rise and fall, tension, release, expansion and contraction. And the science goes to show that when we can engage somebody with those ups and downs, it can actually make us feel the story, right? We can actually, our brains, like the chemicals are altered, and that's why story is so much more memorable than just the delivery of information. Preaching to the choir, you all know this already. But in a more crowded market, more crowded space, when products might have basically the same features, Nancy Duarte says the one that can go on to create an emotional connection is probably the one that will be chosen. We all know this. And yet, most of the problem and solution slides, many, I'll say, that come our way, look like this. Pediatric asthma is pervasive. A quadruple win scenario. So the biggest problem I see with problem slides today is they look exactly like the solution slide. And I get it, the headlines make sense, but tell me which one's which, right? We live in this at-a-glance age where we need to look at something and kind of like, all right, I get it, like right away. And if you cannot use the visual story to your advantage, then you're leaving a lot on the table. We associate visuals with feelings, and those are much faster to process in our brains, right, and in our hearts. And if you look back at like historically just epic advertising, print ads, the ones that didn't have any text on them are pretty magnificent, right? Like, what's the power of this new speaker from RCA? How hot is Tabasco sauce? What is this? McDonald's has Wi-Fi. It's clever, right? And also, when we can arrive at our own conclusions, we're that much more easily persuaded because we're not being told to think something. We were shown it, but we kind of put two and two together ourselves. So it's not just about icons, illustrations. There's also so many other tools in your design toolkit to think about color, tone. Like, just think about what's the feeling we want these communications to convey, and use all the tools in the toolkit to try to bring those to life. There's a couple examples that I really like. We love CMO of Mindtickle, Chris Lynch, has a propensity to really try to push things to the edge of like, all right, really dramatic. So if there's an enterprise readiness crisis, he really wants us to try to push it to feel like, yeah, this does look pretty catastrophic, right? And even if you took away headline, text, bullets, you get this overwhelming feeling like this dude's about to get crunched, And when you do that, when you're framing the problem in that much more dramatic light, it does kind of make the solution slide just, like it feels that much better, right? Or if you were to frame those adaptive, attractive bras under the problem that 45 million plus women in the US have upper mobility challenges, it does really paint it in sort of a different light, right? And it makes more sense. So if you are going back to your companies and you're seeing problem slides that look like this, like it doesn't necessarily right off the cuff, immediate glance, look problematic. If you read it into the bullets, sure, it's like you're gonna compare the before to after, a little more challenging. But what we like to do and suggest is then break up those traditional bullets, try to unthink PowerPoint a little bit, and how can you show it rather than tell it? So when you do frame it like this, again, you're sort of showing this transformation rather than just the traditional kind of expected PowerPoint slides that we might be accustomed to, and why PowerPoint has a bad taste in many people's mouths. There's this really good book called Pixar Storytelling. Has anybody come across that one? It's pretty great. Like this guy, Dean Movshevitz, kind of just picks apart all these great Pixar movies that we know and love, talks about what makes them unique and memorable. And I like this quote about the most moving endings kind of show a transformation from like where we started, where the character started, to where they ended. And I think it's Inside Out, where like these core memories look a certain way. You can only have like, it can only be happy or sad or envious. But by the end, it's more nuanced. As the character grows, her core memories start to take on new shape, new color, and we actually see that transformation. So, if you think about a problem slide maybe you're facing, like, This is a client that was a wheelchair, those home mobility solutions, right? Like to ride up the stairs. Like they're having issues. The dealers are struggling with their suppliers, creating this rift in the system. But with Harmar, who was preaching sort of their bigger narrative was all about partnership. So how can we partner with you to get you to that promised land? Then we just really truly see the narrative take shape visually. So we love the problem solution slides, right? It's our 1-2 punch. It's going to be in every deck. Like if you had to cut every other slide, you're probably going to have a problem and a solution because it's just a great setup.